So welcome to Shelburne Farms, welcome to Nourish Vermont. If this is your first time being here, welcome, and welcome back to those of you that have been here in the past. My name is Tree McCarney. I'm the Director of Community Programs here at Shelburne Farms. And I will probably be in here most of the day, but feel free to grab me if you have any questions about the day, the event, Shelburne Farms, or anything that I can do to make your experience here enjoyable. I want to first honor and thank David Hollenbeck of the Forrest C. and Francis H. Latner Foundation, who generously funded this program. It is David's vision and dedication to a healthy lifestyle, not only for him and his family, but for his immediate community, the world, and our earth that has made this this possible. So we have a lot to thank David for. He's been instrumental in making this happen and deciding on the speakers that are here and really informing me. He's definitely helped me change some things about my lifestyle too. So thank you, David. Sure. I also want to thank my colleagues at Shelburne Farms that have made this possible. Sophia will be around this morning. She's helping to set up, and Tori. They've been really helpful in just managing logistics and whatnot, so I really want to thank them, as well as our chefs at the inn who will be providing our snacks in the morning, and then Frank Pace will be providing us with our delicious lunch and tastings dinner later this afternoon. I also want to thank our many sponsors that have helped promote this event to get all of you here. Aquavite Kombucha, the Intervale Center, Flack Family Farm, NOFA Vermont, Rural Vermont, Nutritional Therapy Association, Urban Moonshine, the Weston A. Price Foundation, Mountain Home Farm, and of course Shelburne Farms. And want to invite you to visit with and all of the exhibitors and vendors that are both in the East Hall and in this center room, and really get to know some of these people that have taken time out of their day to come and share their knowledge and things with you. This morning's presenter, this is her second time presenting at Nourish Vermont, and I'm excited that she's back. She's a former healthcare consultant and teacher. She is the author of A Compromised Generation, The Epidemic of Chronic Illness in America's Children. She is also the executive director of Epidemic Answers, an organization that educates the public about the epidemic of chronic illness affecting our youth, and helps parents find out solutions for healing their children. Please help me in welcoming Beth Lambert.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Those streaks hanging down my face right now are thanks to Mindy and her amazing talent that she has, and that was so beautiful. I might start crying. Thank you, Mindy. As Tree said, my name is Beth Lambert, and I am the executive director of a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to raising awareness to what's happening to our children, how things are different today than they used to be, and how we can help our children heal. I'm here to talk to you today about my passion, what I live, breathe every single day, and that is the Documenting Hope Project. Because I want to tell you about a really dire situation we're in with our children, but I want you to also know there is so much we can do to turn this around right now, right here, today. I love this conference. This is my second year, as Tree mentioned, and it's like home for me. Everybody involved at this conference is just mission-driven, wonderful, heart-centered people. The experts that you are going to hear from over the next couple of days, or if you were here yesterday, including yesterday, are just incredible people. You're going to learn so much from them about health and vitality and what you can do to live optimally. My concern is that information that you are all gathering over this amazing weekend isn't going far enough. And we need to do more to get this out. I am so grateful to Shelburne Farms and David Hollenbeck and the Latner Foundation for all they do to push this information out there. It is so vitally important, and I think we can help their efforts even more and make a bigger impact and get more people to have an awareness about how to live optimally, how to live in harmony with the planet. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So as you're listening to all these experts and learning these amazing things, I want to tell you to think about why it's important to learn these things and why it's important that you share this information with other people. So I have to give you some context before I tell you what the Documenting Hope Project is about. I have to set the stage a little. And this is what the stage looks like. We have more than half of American children with a diagnosed chronic illness right now. So 54% are carrying around a diagnosis like autism, ADHD, diabetes, obesity, mood disorders like depression or schizophrenia, eczema, allergies. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So that's the kids that are diagnosed. And let me remind you, these are children. Chronic illness, in my mind, at least when I was growing up, that's something that happens to older people who maybe made some bad lifestyle choices, drank too much, smoked too much, you know, lived a wild party kind of life or something like that that made your body break down over time. Chronic illness isn't what affects children. Children are these amazing little nuggets of goodness that arrive on the planet and are healthy and vibrant. They're not sick, but our kids are. Our kids are very sick. And it's not just the diagnosed kids. There's all these kids who have soft signs of being sick too. The kids who have chronic constipation or chronic rashes or hives. Maybe they don't have a diagnosis, but they have behavioral problems. They have an inability to focus or have attention in school. And those are the soft signs of being impacted by something that we're not talking about. We're not talking about it. But I think it is the most pressing issue of our times. Because if our kids are sick today, what does tomorrow look like? What does our future look like? So one of the challenges with this epidemic, and I call it a singular epidemic, because it's got the same set of root causes. What's causing this epidemic of sickness in our children is caused by the same series of set of things and really has to do with living in the modern industrial world. One of the challenges, though, is that we talk about these epidemics as if they're singular. It's like, oh, there's an obesity epidemic. And that's probably due to the fact that kids are eating too much fat, which we know is not what that's about. Or they talk about the asthma epidemic as if, you know, it's separate from the obesity epidemic and has to do with too much fine particulate matter in the air. So that's why we have so many kids with asthma. Or the autism epidemic, which everyone's scratching their head about. No one really knows why we are having this autism epidemic, which actually isn't true. People do know. It's just that the common consciousness is not aware of it yet. So if you take any one of those diagnoses I mentioned, this is what the charts look like. Didn't exist before, and now it's skyrocketing. But it's all one epidemic. And the situation is dire. If we look at the growth rates of these diagnoses, over the last few decades, we're talking just a few decades ago, less than 10% of kids carried a chronic illness diagnosis. Yes, we are better at diagnosing chronic illness, but the numbers are real. The growth is real. We're not making this up. And if you project that number forward, just another decade or two, we're gonna have almost every kid with something. The vast majority of children are going to be diagnosed with some kind of chronic inflammatory condition. And I say inflammatory, that's a really important key word because all of these conditions have some kind of underpinning that has to do with inflammation. It's there across the board. So, I mean, just a decade from now, what is it gonna look like? How many healthy kids are there gonna be? And this is an area that I have real concern about, the autism epidemic. So just a few decades ago, we had about 1 in 10,000 kids that were diagnosed with autism. Yes, today we are better at diagnosing autism, no question. We are absolutely better at finding the kids who have it. But you know what? We didn't have to find that many a few decades ago because they weren't there. And today they are. So we're looking now at about 1 in 50 kids with a diagnosis of autism. In some states like New Jersey or Utah, it's even higher than that. There's little pockets like in Minneapolis where it's really incredibly high, like 1 in 20 kids with autism. Okay, now you just take some basic epidemiology and some statistics, and you take that growth rate and you project it forward. If you project it forward, we're looking at 1 in 4 children being diagnosed with autism by 2033. That's not like the year 2300. That's like tomorrow. That's my kids' kids, my grandkids. 1 in 4 kids with autism. Now think about that for a second. We know that autism disproportionately affects boys more than girls in a ratio of 4 to 1. So if you take that ratio and think about that for a second, by 2033, how many boys won't have autism? So another way to look at this situation, again, this is dire, is that we are just throwing money at this problem. We are spending so much money on managing the symptoms of these conditions that it's mind-boggling. If you look at the top conditions that impact our children, the most expensive ones, we are spending $268 billion every year on autism and managing autism, $56 billion on asthma, $190 billion on obesity, $25 billion on food allergies, $100 billion on ADHD, $100 billion on autoimmune diseases. Now let me remind you, this is not money that's going to research to find a cure or to even elucidate the root causes. This is money that's going to Adderall, Strattera, to the bronchodilators, the asthma medications. This is going to the OT and PT for the kids with autism. This is managing the symptoms of these conditions. $750 billion every year just on those top conditions. And we're not curing, we're not preventing. This is insanity. This is total insanity. We need to rethink how we're doing this, how we're managing this whole situation. So let's just look at just autism for a second. What we're spending annually on autism is projected to go up to $1 trillion. It's at $268 billion every year. That's more money than what's been spent on the entire NASA program since its inception in 1971. So imagine if we had that money and we put that into NASA. I think we'd be like in some other galaxy by now, you know, space traveling everywhere. Just think about those resources and how we're allocating them. The annual costs of autism are more than the combined budgets of the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Education, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Agriculture. It's insane. It's totally insane. So one of the other things that happens is we're kind of ignoring it. You know, we just get into this place of complacency and status quo, and it's normal. And we do charts like this, which is the rise of food allergies over a period of 10 years, over a decade in children. So we look at a chart like this, and we're kind of like, yeah, so, you know, food allergies have gone up maybe a percentage point or 2 over 10 years. It's a little bit concerning, but, you know, it's not terrible, nothing to raise the alarm bells about. But what we should really be doing is looking at charts like this, which is showing how food allergies didn't used to exist. And now they do. So when we have these hockey stick charts, you know, before the 20th century, you really didn't have anaphylaxis at all. People weren't eating peanuts and dying. So you had, in the very, very rare case, a bee sting that might have killed somebody in the historical record. A very rare case. All of a sudden, in the 20th century, people are dying from ingesting milk, peanuts, wheat, corn, soy, food. Food, which is supposed to be nourishing us, is killing kids. So we have to take the long view here and say, what has happened in the last few decades, in the last century, that is making us so reactive to our environment, to the things that are supposed to be nurturing and supporting us? And the way I see it is the health of our children is really a barometer for planetary health. You know, our children are kind of little biomarkers for planetary health. And our kids are sick, and the planet is sick. And it's our amazingly unique opportunity, this moment in time, for us to pay attention to that and to see it for what it is. So I'm sure many of you have caught on to an analogy of the canary and the coal mine, that I have these canaries everywhere. This is our symbol because it represents two things. One, the canary and the coal mine, but it also represents hope. Emily Dickinson wrote a book about hope, and she used a bird as a symbol of hope. There's two sides to this right now. And for those of you who don't know this analogy, back in the days of coal mining, you had miners who would go into the mines who could be exposed to toxic and deadly gases in the process of mining. So what they would do is bring birds down into the mine, and they would choose the birds that sang the most, that were the most beautiful singers. And if the birds stopped singing or dropped dead, the miners knew to hightail it out of there because they could be injured or killed by the toxic gases. Well, you know what's happened? Our canaries have stopped singing. They've gone silent. And you think about it, the kids with autism, they've gone silent. Autism, for those of you who don't know it, can be oftentimes a nonverbal disorder. Are we listening to the canaries? Are we paying attention? And if we are, where do we run? Can we get out of the mine? What do we do? So this is the deepest, darkest part of my presentation, and I promise it gets really happy from here on out. Are we going to extinct ourselves? Is that where we're going? This is sort of what the Living Planet Index looks like. How many species are we losing over time? And is the human species the next species to extinct itself? I'm not really worried about the planet. The planet is a self-regulating organism that will correct itself over time. It just needs to get rid of humans in order to do that. But is this where we're headed? I say no. It's not where we're headed. In fact, I am so filled with hope and optimism that you're going to walk out of here feeling filled with hope and optimism too. Like, I hope I spew that all over you, because I need some people on my hope team. I need more of us out there. And I'm going to tell you why I think there's reason to be hopeful. This is the first one. There's this thing that has a death grip on us. It's called genetic determinism. So we made these remarkable, amazing scientific advancements in understanding the human genome. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Human Genome Project and all the amazing things we've learned out of that. Genetics are so cool and so important, so fascinating, and they really do tell us a lot about ourselves, but only a piece, right? And so for so long, we've been thinking that genes are our destiny. So, if you can crack the genetic code, you're going to know why you have heart disease, or why you might have cancer, or why your child might have autism. We just need to crack that code. We are stuck in that. But I'll tell you what, these epidemics of chronic illnesses that are going like this, that's really challenging genetic determinism. Why? Because you can't have genetic epidemics. You can't. So now we're challenging this notion that all of these conditions are genetic. So if it's not genetic, if you can't have genetic epidemics, oh, hey, there's something in the environment that might be contributing to these conditions in ourselves and our kids. Something in the air, the water, the food, our medical care, our leisure time, our work habits, our birthing practices, education attitudes, outlooks, and beliefs. Something about the way we're living our life in modern society is making us all sick. Hey, this is so exciting. This is like a wake-up moment. Here's another reason why I'm hopeful. This is Connor. Connor was diagnosed with autism at 2. He was nonverbal, hand flapping, head banging, really, really sick little boy. And he is a child of, his dad's a Marine, and his mom's a Marine wife, and they weren't going to take autism. So they went out and they found all kinds of integrative doctors, healers. They learned about nutrition. And do you know what they did? They brought Connor out of autism. Connor doesn't have autism anymore. He had it fully reversed because his mom and his dad learned about all the things in Connor's environment that were making him sick and that were making the symptoms of autism appear. So now Connor, he says he's 5 because he was fully recovered by 5, but he's like a 6-year-old boy out playing soccer, the coolest kid ever, by the way. And he's gonna have a totally full life. But you know what his mom heard with the diagnosis? Prepare yourself. He might not ever talk, he may not be able to stool on his own, potty trained, and he might need to go into an institution. That's what his mom heard, and his mom said no. So this gives me incredible hope, because these stories are out there everywhere. I'm sure many of you in this room have either reversed some kind of condition in yourself or know somebody who's reversed conditions, or all over the internet. If you think about how long the internet's been around, it's like this itty bitty little snapshot of time that we've had the internet to share this kind of knowledge and information. Anecdotes like Connor's story are everywhere. They're everywhere. So it's making people say, so you told me autism was a genetic thing. So then how come, if Connor's autism is genetic, how come he doesn't have autism anymore? And there's stories like that for MS and asthma and all kinds of autoimmune diseases and eczema and allergies and there's these recovery stories everywhere. So now people are beginning to scratch their heads and say, so there's something in the environment that's making us sick, and maybe if we change some things in our environment, we might get better. So now we've got this new conceptual model for health that's emerging in the 21st century. It's not really new, it's just that people are waking up to it. And this model looks more like this. So instead of the gene-based theory of health, it's more of a gene plus environment plus, every decision you make moment to moment. That all equals your health. The choices you make, what's in the air, what's in the water, what are you putting on your skin? The choices you make, how do you choose to see yourself in your health? What are your outlooks? What's your attitude? What's your beliefs? All these things actually play into and matter when it comes to health. The thing that's a little bit frustrating is that our healthcare system is kind of stuck in the Stone Ages. It's a dinosaur, which is why I have this picture of a dinosaur here. Our healthcare system hasn't caught up with this new conceptual model of health. It's slowly getting there, and there's some leaders, a lot of them are here actually, who are beginning to push the envelope that way. So this new model of health, again, it's not really new, but it's new to a lot of people in modern industrial society, is one that looks at the human body as a system, a complex, robust system that's constantly processing and metabolizing inputs. So all the things that are inputs, what you eat, what you drink, what you think, what you do, what do you put on your skin, what are you breathing in, all of these are inputs into a system that, again, processes and metabolizes that information and creates outputs. And then when the outputs are symptoms of sickness, like rashes on your skin or hives or breathing difficulties or behavioral problems or mood problems, that tells you something going into the system isn't good. It's really not, or there's something in the system that's out of balance. So this idea that the human body knows how to self-regulate, that the human body moves towards balance, but as long as we continue to put inputs in that are throwing it off balance, you're going to continue to have symptoms. So let's apply this model to our children and to this epidemic of chronic illness. Why do we have so many sick kids? What is it that's making all of our kids sick? So one of the things that I like to do is look across conditions. So whether it's ADHD, asthma, allergies, autism, depression, no matter what it is, there's some common variables that you'll find in almost all of these conditions. One of which is the microbiome imbalance. And for those of you who were here listening to Sally Fallon yesterday, and you're going to hear about the microbiome probably 5,000 times in the next 2 days. As you know, the microbiome is so critical to health. We have all these trillions of microorganisms in and around our body They do such incredible things. We don't even know we're there. They're like a vital organ, and we don't acknowledge it as such. They help us regulate our immune system. They help us detoxify from exposures that we have in the environment. And what happens is you look at all these kids who have these symptoms, and you do an analysis of their microbiome, and that microbiome is not healthy. There's too many pathogenic microbes in there, too many opportunistic microbes, not enough commensal probiotic or helpful organisms. That breakdown is very much a 20th century phenomenon, moving into the 21st century. We have carpet bombed, napalmed our microbiomes, all the antibiotics, all the steroid and hormone medication, the proton pump inhibitors like Prilosec. Those all destroy the microbiome and the good microbes. And there's all kinds of downstream consequences from that. So if you look in all these kids, again, no matter what the diagnosis, one of the other things you'll see is immune dysregulation. Their immune system's out of whack. Their immune system's hyperactive or underactive. They have an immune system that recognizes things that are, normally benign, like food, as enemies and attacks that. And immune systems that attacks itself, like in autoimmune conditions. Part of the reason why we have so much immune dysregulation is because the microbiome actually has a regulatory function on our immune system. It actually signals to our immune cells and tells our immune cells to turn on, turn off. So if our microbiome is out of imbalance, then our immune system is going to be out of balance as well and dysregulated. Other things you'll see across the board are toxicity and oxidative stress. This is a no-brainer. If all of you went out and had your blood urine tested, your hair tested, you'd find toxicity and your jaw would drop. Even if you live the cleanest life. I mean, how many of you have been following the testing that's going on with glyphosate and the GMOs? All these people are having their urine tested. They eat organic, but yet still there's glyphosate in breast milk, in urine of people who even eat as clean as they possibly can. Our environment is just so polluted. It's really hard to avoid the toxicity. Nutritional deficiencies. This one's really interesting because pretty much any child who has some kind of symptoms, whether it's chronic constipation or a mood disorder, they have nutritional deficiencies. It might be zinc, it might be iron, it might be selenium, it might be magnesium, essential fatty acids. Nutritional deficiencies are an epidemic. And now we can test for them and look for them. But even the kids who are eating healthy have nutritional deficiencies. Why do you think that is? The kids that are eating kale and Swiss chard and fatty fishes and getting their essential oils, essential fatty acids, are deficient in nutrients. Why is this happening? Part of the reason is because we've destroyed our microbiome. Because you know what the microbiome does? Helps us digest and assimilate nutrients, helps us create things that we can't make on our own, certain B vitamins, for instance. And then we've also destroyed our soils, which is the source of our nutrition, the source of the nutrients. So living in the modern world, again, has really created this place where it's hard to keep yourself nourished. It's hard to keep that nutritional status up. And of course, as you know, to have nutritional deficiencies, there's downstream consequences from that, endocrine imbalances. I think there's so much plastic and petroleum products and chemicals in the world that are destroying our endocrine system. The kids are, all out of whack. I mean, think about how important the endocrine system is for growth and development. And every day we're coming into contact with things that are endocrine disruptors, like the flame retardants, the plasticizers. So again, you can find all these things in our kids. And there's so many other things. This is just kind of a high level. But again, across the board, whether it's autism or asthma, you're going to find these kids had all these kinds of imbalances in them. Plus, they oftentimes have experiences in their background, in their health history, where they had some kind of obstacle to their development. Maybe they never crawled because they sat in a car seat or baby swings all the time and never got down on all fours to crawl, which is really important for cross-hemisphere brain development. That's part of living in the modern world, is we don't allow our babies to grow up and develop in a way that's natural and in a way that helps them develop. And the other thing I mentioned before is this common denominator of inflammation. There's so much inflammation in the human body in the modern world. I went to a conference, it was an autism conference once, and there was a vendor there who does thermograms. Typically the thermogram, is an imaging that's used oftentimes for detecting breast cancer. And it can detect inflammation in the body. And so what was really interesting is that this vendor had been giving free thermograms out to families all the time, and they would do the thermogram of the mom, and the mom would have, patches of inflammation. She had a sore shoulder, and there'd be, red and white, which indicates inflammation in the body. That would show up on this imaging. But they were doing thermograms of the kids with autism that were at this conference. What do you think their thermogram image looked like? I wish I had a picture. That was so dumb of me not to include one. But what do you think their pictures looked like? White, hot, red. Kids with autism are so inflamed. There's so much inflammation in their bodies. But what do we think autism is? We think it's a genetic brain-based disorder. And we should just embrace this disorder, but not look at the medical components, not look at the inflammation. That makes no sense. Why would we do that? One of the things is when you begin to look at the root causes of all these conditions, and that you see that all of these conditions have the same underlying root causes, you see that we're all in the same boat. So let's say you might have, a few environmental allergies, some hay fever, that kind of thing, and you don't think autism has anything to do with you. Better change that thought, because autism has a lot to do with you, because you're in the same boat as that family who has a child with autism. We're all in this together. We're living the same experience on this planet, and we're exposed to the same things. So this new model, this is why, again, I have so much hope and optimism, because this new model is changing things totally. In this new model, this new conceptualization of health, diagnosis doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that your child has an autism diagnosis. It doesn't matter that your child has Hashimoto's. Do you know why? Because the diagnosis doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. What matters now is what are the inputs? What's going into that child's experience? What was that child exposed to? Because that's how you unravel a condition like Hashimoto's or autism. So now what matters are questions like, what were the child's prenatal exposures? What were the lifetime exposures of the parents? Because we all carry a toxic burden in our bodies, and that toxic burden can be transferred to our children. And that includes the microbiome. What does the mother's microbiome look like? Because when she has that baby, she transfers that microbiome onto the baby. What is the child eating every day? What are they exposed to at home or school? What kinds of inflammatory, toxic, or physical exposures might have stalled or arrested development for this child? This all matters. What's the child's microbiome look like? What does their nutritional status look like? This is how we unravel chronic illness, by asking the right questions, not slapping a label on them. So this is our opportunity. By paying attention to the inputs, we have an amazing chance to change our health, to take control of our health. So this is another way to think about this concept of health. If you think of your body as a bucket, and your health is a barrel, and there's inputs that go into the barrel, and your barrel has a certain size and a certain amount of strength and ability to hold the inputs. So think of the inputs like a drop of water into the barrel. And as you put more inputs into the barrel, more drops of into the bucket, more stressors on the body, you can eventually fill that bucket up, and it can overflow. And when it overflows, that's when you see symptoms. There's too much bad stuff going in and not enough supports to deal or metabolize those stressors. So think about just sort of the standard American life and the kinds of stressors or exposures that an average child might have. Environmental toxins, maybe they had some anesthesia medications because they had a cavity removed at some point. Maybe they have EMFs every single second of the day. That's stressing their bodies. I put in here in blue some of the microbiome stressors that are very, very common for our children. Children who eat a lot of sugar or refined carbohydrates are really doing a disservice to their microbiome. That's destroying their immune system. The proton pump inhibitors are so ubiquitous. I cannot tell you how many babies are being put on Prilosec and Prevacid. And the reason why is because the babies have reflux. They're spitting up their mother's breast milk. Why are they spitting up their mother's breast milk? Because they can't tolerate it. There's some kind of immune response going on to the breast milk. So the doctors put the babies on Prilosec. That destroys their microbiome and sets up for disaster. But this is standard of care. This is what we're doing with our babies. Same thing with antibiotics. Every time a mother goes into a pediatrician in the United States, first line is, for an ear infection, first line is antibiotics. And oftentimes they throw Augmentin out there, or like the broad spectrum antibiotics, which totally destroys the gut bacteria. Do you know what they do in Germany for first line for antibiotics? They use homeopathy. They do that first. We don't do that. So many different things that go into the bucket. This is the theory known as the total load theory, or in the scientific community they call it the allostatic load, which is we have to start thinking about, you know, it's not just acute toxic exposures that harm us. Like people think that like if you're exposed to mercury in high levels, then it's really bad. But they don't think if you are exposed to mercury in small amounts that it's bad. It is, because it's cumulative, and your body accumulates all of these toxins, and at some point tips over. So there's something you can do about it. You can strengthen your barrel, make it bigger, make it stronger, make it more resilient, because your body naturally knows how to deal with these stressors and can, on its own, help to mitigate the impact of the stressors. Things like sleeping, like getting natural light outside, eating nutritious foods that are filled with antioxidants, even just having kind of a basic mindfulness approach to your living in your daily life, having friends and relationships and love, having good interaction with microbes, like digging in the soil and eating carrots right out of the dirt and putting the good soil microbes into your body. Those are all health supports. Those are all things that increase the strength and resilience of your barrel and make you more capable of tolerating environmental toxins and stressors. So look at what happens if you remove some of those health supports. You get an itty-bitty little bucket, and it tips over really quickly. And this is, I think, what's happening with our kids, is that they have these itty-bitty little buckets. Anyway, they're so little, these tiny little bodies, and we're not giving them the supports they need. How many of you go to a restaurant and get the kids' menu? That is not supporting our kids' health. What's on the kids' menu? Chicken nuggets, grilled cheese, French fries, because that's what kids eat, right? Kids eat that stuff. No, kids eat broccoli and kale, and they eat all the things that adults should eat, but somehow culturally we have this mindset that kids don't eat that stuff. That's insane, because we're not giving them what they need in terms of nourishment to strengthen the resilience of their bucket. And in this world, they can't afford to not have those health supports in place. This is why I titled my book A Compromised Generation, because that is what they are. They're a compromised generation. Their ability to tolerate the ever-increasing toxins and stressors in the modern world is very limited. They really are a compromised generation. So how is it that we're ignoring this? How is it that we don't have a handle on what's going on with our kids? Why are we not raising the alarm bells? We're totally missing this slow-moving train wreck. And you know what? You know who knows it? The school nurses. The school nurses know there's something up, because this is what they deal with every day. This is walls of EpiPens, because in their kids, in their community, they are at any moment have to save a child's life because they might have accidentally been exposed to a food that could kill them. The school nurses know it, but we've slipped into this complacency. But why are we still so stuck? Why can't we move past this? I still think the genetic determinism thing is at play here. You know, if you have, how many conversations have you listened to with somebody who has autism in their family or cancer? And what's one of the first questions somebody asks when they find out that that your child has autism, or your child has bipolar disorder, or you have cancer? Oh, did somebody in your family have cancer? Oh, autism, that's weird. Do you have somebody in your family with autism? I mean, we're stuck in that, aren't we? How many of you had that experience where that's the first question that's asked? Because you know what that does for us? If it's in the genes, then it can't hurt us. Because I don't have cancer in my family. whew, I can't get cancer then. Oh, there's no autism in my family. I'm safe. But guess what? That's not the reality. We're all at risk once we understand that it's not the genes, it's the environment. But this is why we can't get over this and we can't see it. There's another reason why we're not paying attention to this, why we're not really grasping onto this, is that we are so hypnotized by this, and it's very American, I think, by this idea that science and innovation is a wonderful thing and it's going to bring us cheaper, faster, better ways of living. Remember the whole Dow industrial chemical tagline, better living through chemistry? This is something that we romanticize. We have so much faith and trust in sort of the new products that come off the assembly line, that they're somehow, we don't think about whether they're safe, whether they have a chemical or something that might be stressful to our body. We're really, really stuck in this. And there's another thing that we do, is we have this faith in scientific miracles that are going to arrive and make our life easier. Think about antibiotics for a second. We had this experience in sort of the 1930s and sort of the World War II era where we totally created a miracle. Antibiotics were such a miracle. Think about it. Somebody who had tuberculosis or pneumonia was on their deathbed. They were going to die because that's what happens to people that are really, really sick with tuberculosis. And then you have this pill that you can take. And what does this do? It saves your life. You give this pill to somebody who's going to die on Tuesday, and on Wednesday they're up and walking around and plowing their field again. That's a total miracle. We put so much faith into pharmaceuticals from that moment that they were going to deliver the answer for us. We put so much faith in that we spend $135 billion in 2012 on R&D spending for pharmaceuticals because we want to have that miracle pill. We want that to arrive so that we don't have to make any of the changes to our lifestyle. We don't want to have to worry about that stuff. We just want the magic pill. But I'll tell you what, symptom suppressive medicine isn't working. It doesn't prevent disease, it doesn't prevent illness, it doesn't even cure disease or illness. So we are kind of trapped in this idea that the answer will arrive. It will arrive for us. But now I want to talk about why we don't have to be stuck in that trap. We can move out of that trap. And I want to bring back my buddy Connor again. So Connor kind of feels like a miracle to people, doesn't he? Oh, that is so great. He's going to have a total full life. This kid's going to be awesome. And, you know, he had an experience that wasn't about waiting for the miracle cure. It was very simple. His parents said, I get it. Bad inputs result in bad outputs. They changed his diet. They gave him therapies that he needed to heal his brain. This is actually the release form from his pediatrician that says, you know, Connor was previously diagnosed with autism. He underwent intensive therapies and had medical and nutritional interventions. He no longer has autism. His developmental delays have resolved, and he no longer requires therapy, any therapy. So this is the hope right here, is by taking stories like Connor's and scientifically documenting that this happens, and by understanding what happened with Connor, why he get better, this is how we prevent conditions like autism, autoimmune diseases, eczema, allergies, and this is how we get the kids that are already sick better. Let me share a couple other case studies. This is Aiden. Aiden was diagnosed with autism at 2.5. He was nonverbal, had seizures, ataxia, which is difficulty with movements, self-injurious behaviors. He was a very sick kid. And this picture here is he's getting EEG, monitoring his seizures. And ABA and OT, which are the standard of care for autism right now in this country, didn't help. But Aiden's mother was like that Marine family, didn't give up, and knew that there was some medical thing going on with her son that she needed to look into and resolve. So she educated herself about nutrition and toxicity in Aiden's environment. She worked with an integrative physician and did some personalized interventions for Aiden. Sensory integration, audio integration, all kinds of therapies that are out there, by the way. And all these experts you're going to be listening to this weekend, they know how to do all this stuff. It's just not out in your pediatrician's office yet. And that to me is a total travesty. And that's easy. That's just information. We can spread information. So what happened is Aiden's diagnosis was officially removed at 6. He no longer has symptoms of autism. This guy is really cool when you meet him. He's like in his early 20s. He's a student at Wesleyan University. He's traveled all over China by himself. And his mother was told to find an institution to put him in at age 2. He would never be an independent adult. He might never speak. And that mother didn't give up. This is Chris, another one of my favorite kids ever. Chris was a pretty surly kid. He was grumpy, just really, really having a hard time in life. He had severe allergies, asthma, ADHD, sensory processing disorder. His stomach hurt all the time. He's always doubled over, Mom, my stomach hurts. How many of you know kids that have these kinds of chronic things? Mom, my stomach hurts. So common. They had him on Ritalin, Nasonex, Benadryl, EpiPen, and an inhaler, and there were other prescriptions too that got tried, right? Symptom suppressive. They're trying to suppress his symptoms, not get to the root causes. None of the prescriptions helped. So his mother found a holistic doctor. She educated herself about nutrition, like all the other moms, removed toxins from the home, and really started supporting her son's body, building the resilience of his barrel. And at 10, Chris has shed all his labels. He's healthy and thriving. He's an A student. He and his mother wrote this book called The Race to Recovery about his experience going through this journey. I actually have a copy of the book over. I have a table on the other side, and you can come take a look at that. This kid is awesome. He's such an amazing kid. He's so eloquent. He's so kind. He's just killing it. He's killing it. We were just talking about this. Kids who have come out on the other side, they're killing it. But he wasn't given much of a chance by his doctors. So this is the last case study I want to share with you. This is Shep, who had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. He was diagnosed at age 3. This was a kid who couldn't get out of bed by himself. Mommy. His mom had to come and get him out of bed at 3 because he couldn't get out of bed. He hurt so much. They took him to the standard rheumatologist. He stopped using his hands because he hurt so much. This is a 3-year-old child. Can you imagine what this child must have been going through? The doctors gave him NSAIDs. They gave him methotrexate, which is a chemotherapeutic agent. It suppresses the immune system. They gave him steroids. They gave him immunosuppressive drugs. They used everything in their arsenal. Nothing worked for Shep. Then, Mom found an integrative physician, learned about nutrition, and she found out that there were certain food culprits because of Shep's leaky gut, which I'm sure you'll all know about or will learn more about this weekend if you don't already, that were causing inflammation in his body. Gluten, dairy, sugar, some of the nightshades like tomatoes and peppers. So they took him out. What's the big deal? There are thousands of types of foods out there. Just because you don't eat dairy and gluten or nightshades doesn't mean your diet's restricted. You're just not eating those foods. No big deal. Parents did it. Guess what? They got him off his pharmaceutical medications. Guess what happened to his pain? Disappeared. Like magic. This is so simple. This is really not hard. So 6 weeks after the interventions, Shep's knees stopped hurting, and then his arthritis pain was gone forever. It has not come back. He's 7. The kid is totally happy. You can find this story, by the way, in the New York Times. This is one of the few stories that I've ever seen reported about kids getting better in mainstream news media. And his mom is very quiet about it because she gets attacked by people thinking she's making it up. She's lying. She's a reputable New York Times reporter, a journalist, and she gets attacked because people think she's making it up. She has the tests to prove it. It's not being made up. So what do all these stories have in common? First and foremost, I think these parents, either through their own research or through working with different kinds of integrative or holistic physicians or healthcare practitioners, they learned or knew or understand that the human body has this amazing capacity to heal. They had faith in the human body. They knew that if they removed the obstacles to healing, that the body would regulate itself. I mean, if you take, there's so many wonderful analogies you could think of with this. If you imagine that your body is filled with thorns, like you've got these thorns sticking out of your body, like you went into a pricker bush or something, and all those thorns represent all the environmental toxins and stressors that are hurting your body. And all you need to do to make the pain of those thorns go away is pull them out, and the body will magically heal, and you won't feel pain anymore. And this is just removing the obstacles to healing, and the magic of the human body does its own work. And the parents somehow knew this intuitively. What else did they have in common? They took all the thorns out. They removed foods that were inflammatory. They took out medications that were suppressing the symptoms. Almost always, a pharmaceutical, it's a patented medicine, it's synthetic. There's going to be some kind of downstream impact from that pharmaceutical. So the parents knew to take those out because those were stressors on these kids' bodies. They took out food with a pH, you know, things with preservatives or additives, colorings. They took out exposure to EMFs. They got the kids outside, getting natural sunlight, running around barefoot, just basic foundational health supporting practices. Giving them clean air and water, making sure that their food was nourishing, that they were moving their bodies. And there's so many parents that talk about this attitude of gratitude and love. Instead of being in that mindset of, why me? I can't believe this is happening to me and my child. This is like this sense of, oh my God, what an amazing opportunity this is for me to learn. My child is teaching me about what's wrong with our environment and what we can do to improve it. What an incredible gift to us as parents when our children teach us that. And all of these parents in these recovery stories felt that sense of gratitude from their kids. And of course, that commitment that parents have to their kids, that love and that willingness to stick to it and not give up. And these parents trusted their instincts. So, for instance, with those two cases with the kids with autism, when the doctors told them there's nothing you can do, he'll always be this way, they didn't give up. They knew that was wrong. So I think the message that these parents want you to have, that I want you to have, that we want you to take out into the world, is that our health, human health, is directly correlated with the condition of our surroundings. I just love this photograph. I Googled this. Has anyone seen this before? It's so cool. Do you see the lungs and the deforestation? That is the coolest picture I've ever found. I love it. I might print it and put it on my wall. This is a truth, a fundamental truth that we don't see in the modern world. And we have to. Our children's health is at stake. Our future is at stake. The planet's health is at stake. All it's going to take, it's very simple, is the switch to be flipped and for us to see and understand and know this truth. The other thing these parents want you to know is that everything you need to heal your child is already here. I cannot tell you how many parents I know that when they get their child's diagnosis, whether it's Crohn's disease or autism, they join a walk. And they raise money for the diabetes cure. They raise money for the autism cure. It's already here, folks. It's here. You don't need to raise millions of dollars for pharmaceuticals. We already have the tools we need. Listen to the speakers this weekend that are here. They will give you the tools. So this is our time, right here, right now. We can do this. We can bring this information to the people that need it. But you're going to get skeptics, right? You're going to get people who say, just an anecdote, that kid didn't really have autism, I don't believe it. That's why we need to prove that recovery happens scientifically and rigorously document it. So this is the Documenting Hope Project. This is how we're going to do it. We have to take this platform of understanding health's relationship to the environment and make that the new standard of care. So when you go into your pediatrician's office and your child has asthma, the first thing the doctor will say is, what's your child eating? Are they sleeping? Do they get natural light outside? Do they touch the earth ever? What does your child do for fun? Those questions aren't really being asked. So there's a new standard of care that we hope to usher in by showing that the environment matters. So what are we doing? We're doing a pilot recovery program We're taking a small group of children who have 1 of 7 chronic illness diagnoses, and we're giving them free healing and support, all the food that they need. I'll tell you a little bit more about the program in a second. The second part of the Documenting Hope project is we are filming every second of this recovery program so that we can create media to disseminate out to the public. Because how easy is it just to sit and watch something on YouTube or to watch a film that shows you transformation of a child from sickness to health? Most people don't know it's possible. Again, we're stuck in that genetic determinism, and they think, well, my child has autism. There's probably a gene in there. They haven't figured it out yet, but it's lifelong. We're going to change that through media. Then the other part is a grassroots movement, and I'll explain a little bit more what I mean by that. And finally, some technology tools so that we can scale this program and make it more accessible for people. So first, the recovery program. What we're doing with this recovery program is providing proof of the concept that healing is possible. This is a case registry. This is not a double-blind placebo-controlled trial, because guess what? Double-blind placebo-controlled trials really only work for what? Pharmaceuticals. We're not giving pharmaceuticals unless they require it for some reason. But this is not that. We're not looking for a singular molecule. This is what human health is. It's multifaceted. There's multiple things going on at once, so you have to remove all the thorns. So remember that analogy, if you have all these thorns in your body? A lot of families are like, you know, I tried gluten-free and casein-free and it didn't work. That's because they removed 2 of 36 thorns in their child's body. Of course, the symptoms are still going to be there. So this is, the program that we're doing is a case registry. We're going to help the families figure out how to remove all the thorns in their child's body. We're going to be capturing biomarkers along the way. So things that you can measure in blood, urine, stool, hair, baby teeth, if they lose them, that will measure what did the child look like when they were sick? What did their oxidative stress, cellular toxicity, essential fatty acids, nutrient profile, what did it look like in the beginning? What did it look like at month 6, at month 12, at month 18, and when they're healed? So it's indisputable. Like with autism, it's biomedical. There's biomedical things going on with these kids where everyone thinks it's up here. And then we're going to be documenting the doctors and the healthcare practitioners who are working with these kids. What are they doing? We want to document it so we can take these best practices and train other clinicians and other healthcare practitioners and make this a new standard of care. We have an ethical responsibility to make this the standard of care. I really feel like this is a moral issue. And we have to do this through science. And the hope is also our scientific team will publish at the end of this project as well. We're taking 2 children in each of 7 categories, because guess what? If we take a child with autism, ADHD, asthma, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, mood disorders, obesity, and atopic disease like allergy, and across the board you see the same biomarkers out of whack, totally shatters this disease label diagnosis paradigm that we're stuck in. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. It's what is causing those symptoms. It's causing the body to be out of balance. This is another component. This is the removal of the thorns from the body. This is an image from biobiologists. Biobiologists are environmental home consultants who come in and take a look at where's the Wi-Fi exposures? Where's the radiation in the home? Is there mold in the home? Are there toxic exposures? Is there lead in the walls? And find all the things that might be contributing to stress on the body. And then, of course, there's the healing supports, all those things I talked about that make the barrel stronger and more resilient. Nutrition. We have so many amazing tools through nutrition alone, but that's not it. There's so many things you can do to support the body, and we'll be doing everything we can to support these children's health. And then, of course, this is a little bit more complicated. All of this stuff works for adults, of course, too, but we're talking about children who have very specific developmental needs. And one of the things that's very common is that children have missed developmental milestones because of some kind of inflammatory event when they were infants or young, and they need to go back and revisit those developmental milestones. And this is a critical part of our project as well, is making sure we go back and revisit arrested or stalled development and get them back on track. This is part 2 of the project, the film and the media, and this is actually a snapshot from interviews we were doing in LA. And this is so critical for us. Our hope is to release a film, a documentary film that's theatrical, but I've been having conversations with different production companies about a docuseries and about releasing things on the internet. We're going to reach people through their hearts, through media, by telling the stories of recovery. I mean, imagine this. You're a mom, you just got your child's diagnosis with autism, you are just beside yourself, you don't know what to do, you're feeling lost, you're feeling alone, you're feeling helpless, and you watch this film of these kids who had autism, and you watch their story of them getting better. What? Autism is not lifelong, it's not forever? I want that. What do I do? What's the next steps? And that brings in our educational component. We have a grassroots movement that we've been slowly building. The grassroots movement is identifying people in communities. It could be somebody in here. Actually, there's a couple of people in here that are involved in that, that are involved in educating people in their own communities about all these health-giving supports and about all the stressors, and teaching people how to make changes. This is not rocket science, this is daily life. How do I make different choices to support my child's health? This is a picture from an event we had in New York City, and this is, you guys will love this. Down here we have some fermented beverages, some cultured vegetables. This is not coffee, that's a thing with bone broth in it. And we were out, I mean, you should have seen some of the faces on these parents. That's what in there? But by the end of the event, we had a nutritionist come out and speak. We had Amy Ziff, who is the founder of Made Safe, talking about all the intoxic things in your personal care products. These people walked out of there being like, oh, wow, I had no idea, because most people are asleep. Most people have no idea. It's not their fault. That's not a judgment. It's just how we grew up. This is America. We love our creams and our toxic things and our shiny, new factory, industrial things that we have around our homes. It's just what we do. So it's not a judgment. It's just we need to shift how we live. And these are the people that are out there preaching. So the grassroots movement is about normalizing recovery, making recovery the goal. We call it mainstreaming miracles. And this is another piece I'm really excited by. And actually, part of the reason that this is happening is because I was here last year talking about this project, and as a result, we got support from the Latner Foundation and also from the Alliance for Natural Health that have helped us build this piece, which to me, this is the golden egg of this project. This is a technology tool that we're building with a partner called the Living Matrix, which is a software company that collaborates with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and we're creating a platform to do personalized health risk assessments. So remember I told you about all the thorns that these kids have? How do you know what thorns are there? How do you figure it out? We're creating a technology tool that helps you identify all the thorns in your child's body. Really cool. Really, really cool. So we're building this right now. So for some of you who were here last year and heard me speak, I'm going to give you a few more updates, but this is one of the most exciting things. And again, because people got on board and helped support us financially, we're able to do this. The other thing that's super exciting about this is we're collecting big data. So the kids that are applying to the program are going to be filling out comprehensive questionnaires that ask everything from what kinds of toothpaste do they use, how many rounds of antibiotics have they had, what kinds of food are they eating every day. And we have this amazing scientist down at the University of Delaware who is our human gunculator. He's like this data cruncher, and he's going to be creating all these correlative models and predictive models based on environmental inputs and health outcomes. Really interesting stuff. This is cutting edge. So this is the message. If you take nothing else from this presentation today, I want you to know that if we can transform how we think about our health and our children's health, we totally have the capacity to heal the planet and to transform how we as humans live on this planet. Think about it for a second. If you take like the microcosm of your life and you get rid of all the toxic stressors in your life and you eat food differently, you're not going to be buying the products from the companies that are polluting the earth. You're just not. There's this natural downstream, amazing healing for the planet that happens as a result of this cultural shift. And we have got to work together to make this happen, because there are so many people who've been working on healing the environment. I mean, think about the environmentalist movement that really started to foment in the 1970s. There's so many amazing organizations out there that are saving the whales, saving the rainforests. Those people love the planet, and they're doing everything they can to heal the planet, but it's not enough. So the way I see it is, if we can't heal the planet by loving the planet, surely we can heal the planet by loving our children. That's not hard. That's natural. I think we can do this. So here's Connor, and he wants you to know that we can do this. We can mainstream miracles like him. Make this every day. So at this time, what I would like to do is show you a brief video.